Yeah, we're currently live to my users, so I'll hop in here. Um, hide this. I have to be like super careful what I'm including, like with the single screen. Yeah, I really do. I really do. It is what it is. Okay. I guess we can get started then. Uh, yeah, yeah, yeah. You can give an intro, and then we can break down the tool that we're building. It's crazy. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. Nice. I guess I can introduce. I'm gonna be an intern at Jenny. I don't know if I'll be supporting the main product or some of the stealths, but I've been working on this project that we're gonna introduce with Mark. I built some of the live tools that are on the Framer site right now. Some of the really grok thrown together products just to get like interactivity, which was cool. I think we had 80 or 90,000 active users end of 2024. Uh, if I looked at the numbers right now, they would fall off because we end of school, right? Like, I don't think there's a lot of people that should be using it. Yeah, that's gonna be pretty sad. But yeah, in the meantime, Mark and I have been drafting up a new product. I'll just start sharing my screen just to bring us to the actual page, and then I think you can just look at my screen as we're going through this, and then we can talk about it. So, all right. Sure. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. You could take us through that because I think you were the one that had the Notion page initially.
Are in weeks for to get a response. My feedback loop is really long. And on the other side of things is like people writing papers to publish in journals. There's this notion of desk rejection, right? So you submit a paper to a journal has a bunch of publishing guidelines. Maybe you missed a few of them. Your paper just gets rejected, sent back. And so I think one opportunity we saw to give a little bit more value to these users is how can we make that feedback loop super fast? How can we give them a tool where they can take their not finished, but almost finished draft, um, tell us where they're trying to publish it, either in a specific journal or maybe just you'll see in a minute we have general feedback as well. And then give them a result, allow them to iterate faster and tighten up that feedback loop before they actually have to send it off to the publisher or submit it to their supervisor, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean I'm not a crazy academic writer, but I've personally, as I was drafting for IEEE, it's a very long process to get from even the final state of your paper, whether or not you've used Jenny AI to develop that paper or not, to actually bring it to your professor and get it to a state where you would want to send it. And I think post submission, it took us two rebuttals, which equated to about 18 months after the final final version to the version that IEEE accepted to get it actually published. So it is like very time specific process. So we want to really speed that up. And I think that's why I got so into this project was because I would use this if I wanted to go to grad school. Maybe even more so over Jenny AI, like as the main tool. Um,
Yeah, this is kind of agnostic as well, right? You don't have to have written in Jenny. It's more
yeah,
just like we had a good user fit, right? We had users exporting it to latex or exporting to
yep,
docx to go finish. So I think it's like a at least from like a lean testing point of view, like maybe we can talk about this more in a minute, but
yep,
we at least have users who export a document which is like high intent that they're probably going to take it somewhere for feedback. So I
right.
think this is when we can maybe explain how like we get the initial users into this product. So
For
like
sure. Yeah. Actually, I'm gonna ask you, do you mind pulling up Jenny's portal, you can kind of
Yeah, yeah.
talk
Oh,
about like a user experience and where we potentially see this coming in for the very long term. Because I think
100%.
that could give a little bit more exposure. Plus, also sorry about this. I was streaming my entire face during the first part, and I just noticed I wasn't sharing my screen to stream. So you can wave. We can wave at the camera for a second. This is Mark. Sorry about
So,
that.
okay, if I share screen,
Yeah,
can
I'll
the
stop
stream see
presenting.
it as well?
Yeah, so
Okay.
now they're actually looking at what I'm seeing. So that's
Okay.
pretty funny.
I'm a complete streaming noob. This is my first
Yeah, I mean, it's what
first rodeo.
I had my I think this is my fifth or something since I started. So like still interesting. Yeah.
So, okay, maybe first bit is how we drove some traffic to this new product manuscript check that we're building.
Yeah.
So this is Jenny. This is where obviously this is just a very quick example of a paper, but users can export, right? So they can export in LaTeX if they want to finish it in somewhere like Overleaf, or most common export is docx to Word.
Right.
So basically, what happens is any of these triggers probably not going to happen now because I'm part of the internal team and
Right.
it
Right.
won't show me the pop up. But imagine a banner appeared on the top saying, "Hey, do you want to get some feedback on this paper before you submit it?" And that's when we send users to the manuscript check landing page.
Right. And for initial MVP stage, we actually I think we opened the funnel up to all PhDs, right?
Yeah.
Um,
So when users create an account onto Jenny, we ask them like which stage are you at
yeah.
of study or research, and yeah, we pinged this banner on the top there to anyone who identified as a PhD to start with.
Yeah, and once we had initial launch with our very like MVP state, I think we weren't charging. We just wanted to get as much traction as possible to see how users were interacting with the website, where we could improve. And I think we got to a point where we had kind of consistent usability. And additionally, like we are paying for services like hosting fees and et cetera. So we wanted to get a little bit less users per se, but more like as you pay for the product, obviously they would want to get their money's worth. So that's when we think we started seeing more people actually giving feedback form via tally feedback form. And so I guess now we can take people through like the current state of the product as it stands. So I'll go back to sharing my screen. I think we can do a little demo with what I have. Um,
I
bear
think
with
there's a
me.
good bit you just mentioned, Emre, is like I think we had maybe like 5 or 10 initial free
Yeah,
runs for users, but I think at some point it's good to put a Stripe checkout link there to also
yeah,
validate demand.
right.
I think, and we're ironically we're seeing like better feedback from
Yes,
users who paid, which
right.
is quite an interesting learning.
For sure. Yeah, it was definitely more. It's more telling also because we're able to see how people who really want to pay for the product actually interact with the product, right? Um, like for a long time, we weren't even seeing people, we're just looking at the website and just leaving, right? But once they hit that Stripe checkout point, like I've seen somebody go in there and click general feedback, and then once they saw that we were price tagging it, they went and picked like a specific journal, for example, which is pretty interesting because that kind of just tells you that okay, they're gonna want to take this seriously. Um, so this is the nice landing page that we configured. I always thought that this discount for existing Jenny AI users was pretty funny because like there's no way we're validating whether that's true or not.
This is
So I think
this is like pure MVP
yeah, MVP
behavior.
state. I mean, I guess the reality of it is we didn't expose, like we didn't do any work on SEO. So the only traffic that we should be getting is probably only from Jenny users, right?
For sure,
Um,
for sure.
so we have a basic FAQ section. Just for transparency's sake, like we typically send out the paper 2 to 3 minutes after it's been ran through our AI. Let's see. Yeah, so I guess I'll break down our two like pipelines that we have in terms of what we have kind of on the back end without like sharing what we have in mind and a little bit more on the journal specific sections. So we initially opened this up without general feedback. We had only journal specific selection. So once a user came to the site, whatever journal that we supported through scraping the data and storing that in an internal system to utilize to select what type of feedback we were giving, um, we had done about 30 or 40 journals before we realized how many journals there actually are. And before we realized that, I think 80% of the users aren't actually doing this in preparation for a big publication. Um, I think a lot of people are using this tool to get feedback on general structure of their papers,
Yeah.
for classes or for whatever, maybe a thesis paper. Obviously, we couldn't be able to support that because we're using OpenAlex to determine which journal papers that we want to support. And I don't think they go in and actually select thesis paper requirements from specific institutions. So,
I think
and
that was pretty interesting. Right, our initial hypothesis was that the value we could add is this like journal specific um like take on like a review flow.
right,
But we would speak to or see some users' behavior, and they would like kind of search a bit on the journals, right, and then
right,
leave.
right.
So it was actually Emre, it was your idea. It was your idea to
Yeah,
add this general feedback, which
right,
isn't maybe tied to some specific journal requirements, and
right.
that's been super successful.
Yeah, I mean, we ever since we put that in, I want that's also after we had initially launched our paywall, I guess. And I think since we launched it, we've had about maybe 10 to 15 paid people. And I think this is a broad summary, but I think like 80 or 90% of those were general feedback users.
Yeah.
So I can't tell. Most of those users directly just clicked general feedback, didn't care, and moved on. It does hurt when I see people searching for journals and then getting tired. I think this UI needs to be like fully updated so that they would just be able to quickly identify which publication that they would follow through with. Um, and then I definitely need to speed up this process or make this a little bit easier.
Mhm.
Maybe do a Looms video just to showcase what happens when you want to add your journal. And again, this is pretty broad because we're expecting them to enter the right URL, which is also very bad UI design on my end. So now I added additional layers. So even if a person added maybe the website that points specifically at their journal, I have like a backend that will go and try to see if I can add, dash subscription or submission guidelines or all sorts of different types of endings that most journals have in case that my initial scrape detects that this is not where I would be able to pull the metadata I would need to determine like if this is following specific criteria for the journal. So
I think I
yeah,
think this is a good case of like the what's the like old adage that
right.
no like design, but basically that everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Tyson-esque is like we just assumed on this flow that users would of course paste the URL to slash
Of
requirements,
course,
right?
right.
Yeah, we checked a few submissions. It's like shit. This is like just directly to the journal's like homepage. This is not gonna
Right,
work.
right. And I mean, the scraping that like pipeline worked, but it's not efficient at all. Like I'm basically going and checking every single website that I'm able to load with Grok just to do a quick pass through. And yes, Grok is fast, but I mean, there's too much unreliability here, and I think I'm trusting AI too much in this case. And I think that going in and manually determining which papers that we want to support will enable us to build a broader scope. And that is a feature that I have implemented with OpenAlex. But the moment I add that Supabase key into what we have right now, um, our journal selection is going to be unusable. Like we would need to completely redesign how people can search for their journals that they want. So I think that's a upcoming feature update that needs to be tested, but should hopefully provide a little bit more like universal usage so people can actually get the journal specific feedback that they want. Um, so I'll go through just general feedback. Maybe I'll go through IEEE because this was the first um, journal that I had selected. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen publicly now so people can't see my my files. Man, it's so tough to to like always be worried somebody's looking over and Especially when I'm deving, that was the worst. Like I wanted to do a couple of bug fixes with manuscript, but I was like, oh no, like what if, what if Penelope saw this or what if any other competitor saw this? You know what I mean? Like I don't want to just completely dox myself. So, okay, I'll go back to sharing. So I submitted a validation of haptics paper that I wrote with a peer from Rice University. And all you need to do is input your, um, oh, nice. Oh, yeah. So you did some UI updates here. That looks good.
The
Um,
debounce was a bit long, a bit slow. I just
it's
noticed that.
fine. I mean, the processing your upload, I think when we get on Jenny's bill for this instead of Joe's poor wallet, I'm gonna I'm gonna up the computational resource that's utilized. Oh, that's a problem. Did we hit a bug
This
instantaneously?
is this is
This is
this is
true.
the joy of building in public.
Yeah, right. Okay, okay. I think
Here we
it's
go. Okay.
sleeping. It's sleeping. So again, like I think the last user I checked post hoc was 13 hours ago. We're currently using a fly.io paid per use right now. And so the server needs to heat up and I have a
Yeah.
timeout.
Yeah.
So it bounced right there. Let me not also expose. Yep, yep, yep. And the thing is, I'm so worried about SRE constantly that I am normally the test user. So I'm like I'm always pinging and waking up our server just to make sure that like if somebody does come, they're not gonna get pissed off and like leave. So I will Dockerize our backend, get it on Jenny's bill, get a better like I don't think we need to pay that much more, but like make sure that it's awake 24/7 or have some sort of process that wakes it up every couple of hours. Um, and then yeah, so that was the end of the flow. Essentially, you just send in your email and we will send you a manuscript. So we'll wait a little bit, hopefully get the report that we're looking for. We can talk through the report a little bit. Um, but I guess, of course, this isn't our ideal state, right? We would definitely want to transition into doing OAuth, exploring how we can do better looking dashboards outside of a PDF, with inline submission feedback, right?
Yeah.
Similar to a lot of our competitors. But again, I think we do have this nice leading edge of we are trying to understand the nuances of every single submission type. Um, we don't want to just give you broad strokes feedback because I think ChatGPT could do that. But um, we're going to the source of truth for what these submission requirements are, and we're going to analyze your paper with AI and with, regex Python, just to so you can understand your paper to a better degree. Um, but right now, I think in our current state, we definitely hope to see some improvement. So let me check if I got this feedback, and then we can kind of go through it. Yeah, right. Oh yeah. Yeah. Right, right. And I think in addition to that, we should definitely talk about what the steps are to validate that what we're planning on doing is what the users actually want, right? So sweet. Okay, sharing my screen, so that's good. So, yeah, I got this transaction on haptics feedback. Can you see my screen, Mark, or no?
I can see manuscript check landing page at the
Oh,
end.
okay. Let me change the Google. Have to manage two screens with one screen. That's fine. I'll share my entire screen. You can see the. Okay, so we got the feedback. Yeah, I mean, if you looked at V0 and you compared this output, like it is very, very different. It looks much, much better. Um, Additionally, we broke the sections down a little bit more granular. So I think everybody likes scores. I've sent this to different people just to get their feedback on like, do you like the way that this looks? And I think them seeing scores, everyone likes grades, right? Um, and we also started focusing on showcasing like which lines specifically or which quotes are causing good scores or bad scores. So I think that breaking this down is pretty good. Um, so yeah, we give a bit more of a detailed analysis. This is our general feedback. So the prompt that's behind this AI powered feedback is essentially what I used to create that curriculum for the AI to do the assessment was based off of different peer review requirements that a lot of people to be in a place of peer review have to utilize to make the feedback or to pass becoming to getting to a place where they can provide feedback. Um, I got this from a multitude of different institutions, and it was all about like asking the right questions because that's typically how you want to analyze a paper is the paper answering the specific questions about paper's theme and the fluidity, not necessarily is the grammar correct or is the font size right. So this was more
Great. Yeah.
focusing on
Yeah.
the content. And it breaks it down. I don't think that it's worth going through it because nobody read the paper. But yeah, it looks nice. It does publication recommendations. This is recommending a minor review. Um, I'm happy to say that this doesn't need a minor review because it did pass through, but
Well,
you know, but it's
yeah.
fine. It does at least it didn't say major review and like completely destroy the paper. Um, so for validation of required sections, this is specifically in regards to like actually, is it fitting the format that an IEEE transactions on haptics paper should? And so that's why you're seeing the actual section analysis, right? Because these section requirements change from paper to paper. What we are missing that I do have in the backend that's not showcasing right now is a bigger breakdown of like, are your figures meeting the specific specifications required by like IEEE? Um, is your font size the right size and is it the font style the right style? I have that data, but I with the current way that our pipeline works, the I don't think the AI can actually do that analysis um, in its current state, and so that will require a lot more testing. And honestly, it's better to say that we don't provide that assurance right now because that's a kind of a big thing to provide. Um, because we don't want to like tell somebody that they can submit their paper in this current state and we didn't actually scrape that data. So if you go to our manuscript check website right now, they are highlighted specifically as beta features for most figure requirements and other validation specs. We have the specifications that we need. We just don't have the AI analysis there yet. And that should be something that we focus on when we're designing the feedback system. And additionally, we have our tally form, which was shockingly not in this PDF response until
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
weeks ago. um, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Our
that
old The old flow was we would like have a delay, maybe like, was it 30 minutes or so after
yeah, so
the
yeah,
submission?
right. We Well, yeah, I mean, the poor users probably didn't even know like which email to trust because we have to send emails from our backend and also from loops, right? So you would get two emails. One would include the feedback form and one would include the tally form. I don't know why we didn't think about just conjoining at least into the backend one because I can't configure our loops to go through your email, I don't think. Or not loops. I can't configure our backend PDF submission to go through your email. Uh, but yeah, the best way to do it was just to put it inside of the document itself, right? So that's not
This helps so much, right? This is like, we were frustrated initially with our
right,
first batch of paying users that we were not getting feedback
right,
submissions to see
right,
how we did, so we could iterate.
right.
And then this change massively increased the number of
Yeah,
completions.
yeah. Which is good. Like it's such a small thing that you wouldn't think, but I think when you're in MVP prototyping, you give the users way too much credit because
Yeah,
obviously you have the context of the page, so you would think that this is easy. But people are paying for something, like they have to write a paper. They're not going to be thinking about like, oh, let me be charitable and do Mark's tally form, right? Like, they shouldn't have to work to be able
100%.
to give the feedback. And so I guess talking about feedback flow, it would be a good transition to mention like who you are talking with. some of the early stage users that you've attracted from the Jenny group, and your experience talking with them and our steps forward with that.
Yeah, I think the advantage we have right now is we have a bunch of users that are active Jenny users that also, I've had multiple user interviews with, so they're willing to be on WhatsApp with me and like do all these kind of like things that maybe if we were cold start it would be super hard to build
Mhm.
this community.
Impossible, by the way.
Um,
If we didn't have Jenny users, this would be impossible.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, so we have this good group of users who are giving active feedback, and I think it's looking like probably the most common feedback we get right is um, that it would be great to attribute the comments and changes to the actual submitted paper.
Right.
So you can, like we saw in this flow, right? You submit your PDF or your um, docx file, whatever file type you have, and then you get a PDF in return. And now imagine as the user what you have to do now. Now you have to maybe split screen
Right.
our report with
Right.
your like draft or your doc, and then you kind of like command Fing both left and right, trying to figure out what's going on. So I think the way we see it and the way the feedback we've had about um, this possible improvement is like how can we render the user submission in
Mhm.
some web UI
Right.
and then keep all our good comments and good feedback globally, and then also attribute line specific or chunk specific feedback with some nice UI so users can actually act upon it
Right.
directly, right?
Right. And I mean, it is a little bit of a pain point, right? Because you know, we could have gone this complete direction if I'm sure if the Jenny engineers had, a single time on their hands, which I'm sure they don't, to integrate this sort of functionality inside of the Jenny tool itself. But honestly, I think partitioning this add-on to a separate group and doing its own life cycle is going to bring a lot different kinds of excitement. Because now we're able to both support like conventional Jenny users and maybe people that prefer to use other tools to build the
Yeah.
application. And so, yes, we are orienting a lot towards Jenny people, but that's honestly who we're getting traffic from right now, and who we can kind of trust. But we want to bring it a little bit more like global scale coming soon. And so, I think the reason why both of us got motivated to try to be more public about the development of the product is coming from more of a we want to help you help yourself, right? And so some of the stuff that I've done personally is reach out to some of the old faculty that I've worked with throughout my time in research and see if there's even a level of attraction that comes with this, because there are people that have been doing this sort of workflow, like PaperPal has been doing it for quite some time. There are other competitors that we're getting from. I think a guy from Zurich is also starting to develop his own.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a good tool. It's a good product.
Yeah, and so that's great that there seems to be a necessitation for this. And we have a very lucky marketing engine coming from Jenny. So given that, what the next step for me is, especially as like I think somebody who's young and who would love to see something like this scale while I'm still in academia, is connecting with other Jenny users that would like to be a part of this growth. I
Yeah.
think what you guys have facilitated with the back and forth between users is very unique. It's a unique like offshore company approach, right? Instead of having these big blockages, between Microsoft and maybe their users. You guys just connect on WhatsApp,
Yeah.
right? It's not
Yeah.
so complicated. And I like that a lot. I want to get to know who's using the product and what they actually would love to see and feel support from. And so I think as we improve and as I get more confident in publishing this and making this more usable, uh, we want to start launching and revamping our Jenny Discord, which has like 8.5 thousand people in it. But the number is dropping by the day. I don't know if you looked at our Discord, but it's like it's going downhill. And that's probably just, that's the nature of Discord, I feel like. It's summertime, but I think aside from showcasing new demos, actually building a product inside of the Discord itself is going to be a very unique thing. Um, because maybe these people are online and yes, releasing these really nice Loom and design videos are super cool, but now like let's let them directly have that insert inside of the product that we're gonna build with them. And plus, we're gonna charge very little. Like I think we're not, I don't want to, the point of this is to build something that we can integrate eventually into Jenny Flow, right? And so that means that we don't have to charge $40 per paper. Like maybe making it
Yeah,
$4 for users right now and just getting that huge amount of feedback. So eventually when Jenny says, okay, we can make our monthly subscription maybe $2 more expensive, throw this in as an add-on, right? And now you have a good
100%.
way to validate your paper upon submission. And so now you get the entire drafting of your paper was completely internal. And additionally, so is validating that the paper is looking good for submission. And so that's where I see us spending a lot of time is like connecting with the users and making this tool fitting what they envision, right? Um,
For sure.
yeah. So I guess like I guess I don't want to mention any names, but we we've done a couple of feedback rollouts, and I think there was somebody that's actually showcasing manuscript check to his associates at a school. Like, are you able to talk about that, Mark, at all? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We have one user based down in Peru, um, and I think it was a seminar. I think he was running a seminar for some how to incorporate AI ethically into research workflows.
Hmm.
And he actually sent us a picture, right, of him.
Yeah,
Like, we get context. We gave him a few coupons with like a big discount, so that his attendees of the workshop could try the tool, give us feedback, etc. And we got a picture back of like a room of like 20, 30
yeah,
people,
yeah.
trying the product, which is pretty nice. And I think especially in the early stages where we like don't have many users and we're relying heavily on like qualitative comments, right? We,
Right,
we don't have the luxury of like driving 10,000 users to this product a day and then just A/B testing stuff to
right,
iterating our way. So we,
right.
we have to really like get to know the user, get to speak to them directly for the feedback,
100%.
keep the discussion going as well, not just like one shot. Okay, what's your comments?
Right.
So I think it's an interesting. There's probably some interesting learnings for like people building novel new products that don't have an audience. Like, how do you get those like 2, 3 champions
Right.
that you can actually like stick with over time, and
Right.
you trust that they'll give you honest good feedback?
Yeah. And
Um,
I think that's in line with kind of Jenny's story itself, isn't it? Like
yeah,
I've
yeah, yeah,
watched a
for
couple
sure.
of David's interviews, like talking about finding not the TikTokers with the most people, right, for marketing, but the people that have spent many time building that reputation with their users that I'm doing things that you guys would do, and this is a product that I would actually use, right? And
Yeah,
so instead of, I guess, abusing our funnel, which we could have totally done, like make a wrapper and just
yeah,
pull in all the Jenny users and say
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
do you want to click on this and get some nonsense? Maybe it is still, somewhat nonsense right now, but we want to hone that in to be a lot more usable for people. And that's why I think that's what motivated me. Like my process with Jenny right now is I want to, gain the trust of engineers, and the way I was planning on doing that is just recording myself learning how to code, right? So
yeah,
they can see that I'm spending my time doing something. And I think Mark and I wanted to spend that same investment to say like we are thinking about this product and we want to actually build this to be usable for users and built by users and get those real feedback and champions. So it's been like, even though it's small, the scale of Jenny is very big, but doing something all over again, I think is going to help Mark with product. And for me, 100%, whatever, future stealth project I'm working on, it's going to be super important, right? Like, because now I know how to do
yeah,
this. Um, so
for
yeah,
sure.
I
I
guess,
think
yeah,
exactly. I think in the early days of Jenny, when we were super small, like I have to do this like very qualitative feedback,
right.
and then it's easy for me to get sloppy. Right now, we have like lots of user data. I can be like, well,
Yeah,
I'm not really sure. Let me just A/B test it. Well, the data, we can rely on the data. The data will tell us. But I think a lot of the time that's kind of a sloppy product process, right? We need to understand like why. We need to understand like actually what the user thinks and feels. So I
right.
think this is a good like flashback for me,
Yeah.
like 3 years back when we were dealing with like a handful of users in Jenni as well. So I think
Yeah.
it's a nice habit a nice skill to like keep sharp for sure.
Right. 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 Um, I guess, we did talk about the users. We talked about what to expect. Is there any other closing remarks you'd have before I cut stream for the first episode? I guess, where do you see this forum taking off? How, like, the next time we meet, what do you hope to have accomplished? I guess we didn't set that behind the scenes at all, but the next time we meet, where should we be at? How are we growing things right now?
I think so. We have $100 in revenue, right? I think so far, maybe a
Yeah,
bit
so
more.
far, I don't know, like the Stripe has been so glitchy, but I think
I think we're at 100,
we're
about
at
a hundred
100.
dollars in
Yeah,
revenue.
yeah,
I think next time we do catch up, we can probably double that and then aim for like three. So I think we're setting up our first Emre UI and the user live call, right? Live feedback
yes,
call based on a review. So I think maybe we can aim for like three of
yeah.
those done before next call.
Sure,
I think it's
sure.
pretty good,
And we
achievable
can, if he's comfortable, or I think you can follow up and say like, hey, we are doing this forum. Maybe he wants to be a part of this journey as well, right?
for sure.
So yeah, I think we're not gonna set any rules around like, oh, we haven't hit this metric. If it's been too long and we're not talking enough, like we have to bring it back to this mission of we just want to document this. We don't want to make a super big black box around the product that we're asking you to pay for. Um, but we should do something in between calls, right? You don't want to get stuck in like a, yeah, we're gonna do this cycle. Um, so yeah, sweet. I guess I'll end call, or I'll end the stream. We can chat a little bit afterwards to talk about next steps, and then I think you're out in 4 minutes, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So okay, let me end stream real quick. Thank you, Mark.
cool, cool, cool.
Okay.